Our practice will be attention focused on tactile sensations of the breath at the nostrils. Begin by settling the body in its natural state. Which is a state of relaxed ease, stillness, and alert, vigilant attention. So you reach that natural state not by striving for relaxation, but by releasing tension. So wherever you find tension in your body, let your breath be drawn to it and release it on the exhalation into space. And settle the speech in its natural state of effortless silence. And this natural state of speech also refers to giving up all control of the breath. Especially on the exhalation. Don't expel the breath, don't push it out. But just simply relax the expansion of the chest that allowed the inhalation to occur. So that all of your exhalation is a process of relaxation. And settle the mind in its natural state. Which is awareness, luminous, spacious, anchored in the present moment of experience. And now with the power of intention, narrow the scope of your attention only to the domain of sound. Sounds have no owner. You can give bare attention to sounds. In the herd there is only the herd, without conceptual overlays, without defining what it is. It's only sound. And now, with intention, narrow the scope of your attention and direct it to tactile sensations. And try to maintain the same relationship with these sensations of the body that you developed with sound. In the felt, there is only the felt. This is more challenging with tactile sensations, because we are habituated to think of these as my sensations arising in my body. Both of those are conceptual overlays. Simply attend to these sensations with bare attention. And now, with intention, narrow the scope of your attention once again, now to tactile sensations that change as the breath enters and leaves your body. Wherever these sensations occur, let your mindfulness remain continuously engaged with the flow of the breath in and out of the body. And now use the power of intention once again to give a target to your mindful attention. Direct your attention to the abdomen and let that fill your mind. These tactile sensations. With bare attention, simply know the rise and fall of the abdomen, or the expansion and contraction. as the breath enters and leaves your body. As you maintain continuous engagement of your mindfulness with these sensations, let your introspection give you periodic reports about whether you remain engaged with your object of choice and whether laxity or excitation are on the verge of occurring. And now, with intention once again, shift your target for mindful engagement with the breath to the sensations of the breath at the nostrils. Let your mindfulness be a stationary gatekeeper at the nostrils, noting these sensations as the breath enters and leaves your body, but the mindfulness remains stationary at the nostrils. From this point at the nostrils, remain continuously engaged with the full course of the inhalation and exhalation, from beginning to middle to end, and right through the pause at the end of each inhalation and exhalation. Use the power of intention to power your engagement continuously with the tactile sensations of the breath. And specifically, form an intention to remain continuously engaged with the sensations of the breath through the full course of the exhalation, right through to the pause at the end. And then wordlessly and instantly recollect your intention at the pause before every exhalation. Recollect and refresh your intention in the pause before every exhalation. And now in the pause after the exhalation, add a quick glance of introspection. Simply with introspective awareness, knowing whether you have made it to the pause, and knowing whether there is excitation or distraction that is about to interrupt your engagement with the object. Or if your engagement with the object is becoming lax. With that quick glance, simply note whether laxity or excitation are present or about to occur. And importantly, this quick glance does not interrupt your continuous engagement with the object, the sensations of the breath. Use the power of intention and introspection at the beginning and the end of each exhalation. For as long as they are useful in developing a flow of meditation. And after you are comfortably settled in that flow, and it's no longer needed, you can discard them. if your mind has gone wandering for some period of time, and you need to reset your meditation, first of all, release your grasp on the distracting appearance. Secondly, rejoice. Ah, I am lucid again. Feel a moment of pleasure in that. Third, return to your chosen object, the sensations of the breath at the nostrils. And fourth, relax ever more deeply all the way through the full course of the exhalation. We have, hopefully, you don't have to rush off to bed yet, and we have time for just a few questions. Do you need the light on? Do you need the light?
Is the mental consciousness or mental awareness in the breath?
I don't understand what?
What is the mental consciousness focused on the breath?
Uh-huh. Oh, I see.
And the difference between this one and the tactile consciousness.
Aha. Okay.
Tu peux la dire en français pour la traduction.
So, in this afternoon's practice, this afternoon's practice of Dzogchen approach to mindfulness of breathing. 80% of your awareness was on the still, spacious awareness itself. So really this is awareness of awareness with no object. But there is, because it's only 80% of your awareness, there is 20% that is available for the sensations of the breath. Well, so I'm sorry, not the sensations of the breath. So for knowing the breath directly. So there are 6 primary consciousnesses in the Buddhist scheme of the mind. So the 5 sense consciousnesses, and then the 6th is mental consciousness. So what we were trying to do with our breath meditation is to involve only the mental consciousness of tactile sensations with the breath, and to eliminate mental consciousness from engagement with the sensations of the breath. Because the mental consciousness is going to conceptualize the breath. And so what we want is to get bare attention focused on the tactile sensations of the breath. So that is the case, for instance, in the meditation that we just did this evening. But the point of the practice that we did earlier this afternoon was that we are preparing ourselves to move into this practice of simultaneous stillness and motion of Dujam Lingpa. And so the critical skill for that is stillness and motion. So first of all, recognizing the difference between stillness of awareness and the movement of mental appearances, and then having a simultaneous experience of that stillness of awareness and the movement of mental appearances. So the knowing of the rhythm of the breath, rather than engaging the breath as a tactile sensation, is knowing simply with mental consciousness. And basically, I don't think words can really describe it. So people are often skeptical that it's possible to know the breath. And here we are again just working with the rhythm of the breath and knowing whether it is long or short. But we are knowing the breath directly in the way that the potter knows the revolution of his wheel is long or short. So that knowing is immediate and unmediated. So it's not inferential. It's not that we use a stopwatch and then infer from that whether this was a long or short breath. But it is immediate and knowing. And so I think that Alan's use of the comparison with knowing the breath in a lucid dream is the most precise way that I can describe what that knowing of the breath would be like. Because in a lucid dream, just as I mentioned earlier, you can know the rhythm of the breath, and you can communicate that to a researcher who is monitoring your breath and measuring it on the research table or in the bed, and they will be correlated, what you are experiencing in your lucid dream and what your body is experiencing. But because you are sleeping, you have no access to sense input. And so it's basically that. You can basically know the rhythm of the breath without relying on tactile sensations to know it. And one thing that I didn't mention about that experience is that, again, this is just based on my own experience of this technique. So first of all, the moment that you shift to knowing the breath directly from tactile sensations, your breath becomes short and shallow. So that was the first thing. The second thing that I was going to mention just escaped me. Short and shallow, and then... anyway. If it was important, it will come back. But let's move on to another question now.
Is it possible to repeat slowly when we have the full cycle, what we do with intention, then exhalation, then introspection, and if we can repeat the process on the whole cycle?
Was that question before this last meditation or after? Was the question answered by the last meditation?
Even if it's after.
Okay. So the key to stability is the exhalation. And at the pause before every exhalation, we recollect or reaffirm our intention. And that intention is to remain continuously engaged with the sensations of the breath all the way through the full course of the exhalation to the pause at the end of the exhalation. So, but you, of course, don't recite those words. It is just this instant recollection of your intention. So that intention is what, remember the power of intention, is that intention determines what is going to fill the subsequent moments of attention. And so, based on the power of that intention, you then remain continuously engaged with the tactile sensations of the breath all the way through the full course of the exhalation. And then, based on my premise that you will never lose your object on the inhalation, then you get a free ride of mindfulness, basically, on the inhalation, and then you get to the pause after the inhalation, reaffirm your intention again, and then you make it all the way again to the pause. So it's very, very powerful. And then with this evening's instruction, we added at the pause after the exhalation that glance of introspection. So you have at the beginning of the exhalation, you have intention. At the pause after the exhalation, you have introspection. And my contention is, and the pretty common experience now of hundreds of people that have tried this now, is that if you're successful in remembering your intention and remembering introspection, you're going to remain stably engaged with your object. It's when you forget to reaffirm your intention that your mind goes wandering. Okay?
L'intention, c'est quelque chose de ponctuel. Je n'arrive pas à comprendre si c'est quelque chose qui...
What is exactly the intention? Is it something? Is it very brief, or is it something?
Yes. So you announce basically to all of these unconscious subminds that are vying for your attention, you announce to all of those subminds, my intention is to remain continuously engaged with the tactile sensations of the breath through the full course of the exhalation. So you only have to do that once, though. And then, so you don't do that obviously in the pause before every inhalation, but you do that at the beginning of your meditation. This is just using intention, and you use intention in multiple ways because basically meditation is just all about cultivating a series of different intentions. And so your intention then at the beginning of each breath of exhalation is silent, wordless, and instant. You just remember it. And you don't have to repronounce it.
About clarity, we say that the first state of stillness is clarity. So relaxation I can understand, but clarity, what is that?
Clarity is the intensity or the luminous quality of your engagement with your object. So you can think of it as the opposite of laxity. So clarity is one word that is often used later is vivid. So it is a vivid, intense. Sometimes intensity is used. I believe the Tibetan word is nar. But anyway, intensity of focus. So that is clarity. So it is just a strength of engagement. So it's not, clarity does not refer to the clarity of the image or the appearance. Clarity, importantly, refers to the clarity of your mind that is engaging the appearance. And later we will talk, so basically what we are trying to do in the initial stages of shamatha, the first balancing act is to relax more and more deeply while we maintain the clarity that we begin our meditation with. Because at the very beginning of your meditation, it's likely in the early stages of your practice anyway, that is going to be the greatest clarity that you're going to have. And usually what happens is that people's clarity diminishes as they go through their meditation. They become drowsy and they just are not clear, their mind is not clear. So your goal then is to develop this anomalous form of attention that is simultaneously deeply relaxed and brilliantly clear. So oftentimes clarity is described as luminosity and brilliance, described like that. And in the beginning it might be a little misleading because it's not that you're visualizing brightness. So that's another often used synonym is just bright engagement. You feel energetic. So in the beginning, what you're doing is maintaining the clarity that you begin your meditation with. Then later, what begins to happen, especially by level 3 and then especially by level 4, what happens is there's a synergetic relationship that happens. And this, I didn't mention this, but this is one of the reasons in your breath meditation, to choose the sensations of the breath at the nostrils rather than the sensations of the breath at the abdomen. So the sensations at the breath at the abdomen are coarse sensations, meaning that they're easily found because of that very pronounced movement of the abdomen. And so they are also easy to maintain your attention with because of that pronounced movement. When you, with intention, shift your location, your target of attention to the nostrils, this is a much more subtle tactile sensation. And so something interesting happens because you have intentionally chosen a more subtle tactile sensation. So you can describe that as an upward spiral that becomes self-reinforcing. upward spiral. So because you have chosen a more subtle object, and the calmer your mind becomes, the less volume of breath there is, the more subtle these sensations become. And so they can become more difficult to find in the first place and more difficult to maintain continuous engagement with. And so to maintain this continuous engagement with the more subtle object at the nostrils, you have to have a more acute mindfulness, meaning that it is just more precise, more powerful, has more capacity. And so on this spiral then, the more subtle object requires more acute attention, which reveals a more fascinating object, which has the power to compel your continuous attention because it's more fascinating. And then up here, something interesting happens. As you get into flow with stable attention, your clarity naturally improves. So there is an association of stability and clarity. And what is happening at that point is you are beginning to experience the natural luminosity of the mind. So when we achieve stage 9 of Shamata, we are experienced in just resting in the natural luminosity, non-conceptuality, and bliss of the essential nature of the mind. So this is the relative nature of the mind, not pristine awareness still. But these three qualities. So because what is it that is obscuring the natural luminosity, non-conceptuality, and bliss of the mind right now? Why aren't we experiencing that? It's because of those 5 obscurations, right? And excitation and laxity are 2 of those obscurations. So as we maintain our practice and we are able to avoid laxity and excitation, what we are beginning to get is a glimpse of the natural luminosity of the mind. The obscuration is less powerful, and it can feel like the sun before sunrise while it's still below the horizon, but the dawn is beginning to get brighter. So that is the natural luminosity of the mind. So at that point then, you're beginning to feel you can, as your meditation progresses, or as you continue in your meditation, you actually might end a session with greater clarity than you began with. So in the early stages, you just try to maintain the clarity that you began with. Then later, you actually, because of your stability throughout the session, you actually get greater clarity than you began with. And then in the later stages of shamatha, something else happens, and that then we'll describe as vividness. And that is something else we'll leave for another discussion. But the power of vividness then is beyond even clarity.
Is attaining shamatha equivalent with the first jhana?
Yes and no. So the attainment of shamatha is called access to the first jhana. So it's not the actual achievement of the first jhana. So that is a stage after the achievement of shamatha. But it's this world between, it's not part of the, well, we'll go into that in more detail when we describe substrate and substrate consciousness in the next couple of days. But and the answer to your question, we'll get a very detailed answer coming up when we describe exactly what the attainment of shamatha is like and why it's such a substrate consciousness is such a unique form of consciousness. There's a lot to be said about that, and that substrate consciousness is what we are accessing with shamatha, but it's not the first jhana, but it has access. It's called access to the first jhana. It's basically you have 1 foot in it, but it's not the full achievement of shamatha or of the first jhana, but very, very close. And then in the Mahayana tradition, it's said that, so in the Theravadan approach to practicing meditation, these jhanas that you traverse through the form realm and the formless realm after shamatha are something to be cultivated. But in the Mahayana tradition, they're not. They're regarded as not worth the effort, basically. And I'll describe how that relates to the night of the Buddha's enlightenment and why Mahayanists would think that. Because it's at that point that you don't want to, when you have a very unique capacity when you achieve shamatha that you don't want to lose by progressing through the jhanas. And that is the ability to do course examination and subtle analysis or subtle investigation. So you want to be able to use now, once you achieve shamatha, that is the point then that you bring your cognitive mind back into to work, basically to do vipassana practice. And that's what we will be doing later in the retreat. First we'll achieve shamatha by about day 4 or 5, and then we will progress from shamatha, where Mahayanas go, is not into the jhanas, but into vipassana practice. After you achieve shamatha, then you really have the capacity to do true vipassana practice, and then very quickly it's the direct perception of emptiness after that. So then it's a more direct route to enlightenment in the Mahayana view.
When we settle in the natural state of mind, is it shamatha?
Yes and no. I mentioned that the settling the body, speech, and mind in their natural states can be used as a preliminary practice, and it is also the fruit of the practice. So you could say that the natural state of the mind, when we settle in the natural state of the mind, that would be the essential nature of the mind or the essential nature of the relative mind. So, in that way then, settling in the natural state of mind would be shamatha. But we are using settling in the natural state of the body, speech, and mind as a preliminary in our meditation. So we just use our best facsimile at that point, basically to begin the meditation. And then hopefully using it as a preliminary will lead to success with our meditation, and then we achieve the ultimate, or the relative natural state of mind, which of the essential nature of mind, which is substrate and substrate consciousness, but it's not the absolute nature of the mind. So if you were to say if we're later when we're talking about settling in the natural state of mind, what we'll be talking about is pristine awareness rather than shamatha. So that is the absolute natural state of the mind, would be pristine awareness. And much more to come about that.
c'était la même question par rapport au souffle, au cycle. Pardon. La méditation, quand on se concentre sur la sensation tactile du souffle, etc.
Je sais pas.
Ok, l'expiration, that's a similar question than before.
Okay.
So when you propose a method of meditation that we can use during the day, we have up to now one guided meditation with you, and most of the time after we try to meditate alone. We have individual Kalachakra. So, but the person who had the question feels a bit lost because it doesn't seem enough to have one guided meditation. Maybe we should have more advice during our individual meditation.
Right. So in these evening sessions, I will try to repeat earlier meditations. So we make progress along the path of Dujam Lingpa during the day, and in the evening, then, for instance, like tonight, we went back to breath meditation at the nostrils. So hopefully that is helpful to hear it again. And then the best that we can do with the limited time that we have in this very brief retreat is just to do it once or twice and then use that as a foundation. And then hopefully if these practices resonate with you, then because of the good work of our friend Gwen, we will have video and audio available. And so unfortunately, a meditation retreat of this length doesn't give us the time to really develop each practice before we move on. In the recent 1-month retreat that I did, after introducing a new practice, we would have a full day of individual practice based on that with reviews of the guided meditation. So that would be easier to really integrate that, new information and new practice into your own practice than before moving on. But unfortunately, in this length of time, we don't have the amount of time needed to do that. But I will, in the evening, go back and review previous meditations. So hopefully that will be helpful. Is that all? Okay. It would be better if you write the question so that you can maintain the same.
Okay. Today I was alone 6 hours, and for me I don't know what I can do. I don't understand what you explain. So what is the solution for me? 6 hours alone. It's not 1 hour, 2 hours.
Do the best that you can.
Sorry?
Do the best that you can.
Okay.
And be satisfied with that. So basically you're just watching your mind, watching your breath, and naturally it's going to be a different experience at the beginning of your meditation career than it is as you progress. But so just recall the instructions as best that you can, and then just do the best that you can, and let that be enough for right now. And let it inspire you to practice more and to get copies of the audio, video, and, as then your time allows, just go deeper and deeper into the practice. But I think everyone in this room was in the same situation that you're in at the beginning of our Dharma career, and we were all sitting in classes that were way over our heads. We didn't understand most of what was being said, but it inspired us to come back, to learn more, to let our curiosity keep us moving along the path. And so I think all of us sympathize with you being in this retreat and not having the background that maybe most of the people have. But we've all been there, and I think that we're all encouraging and hoping the best for you. And just do the best that you can and be content with that is really my best advice. And otherwise, I don't think that, we have time to, we have a lot of material to keep going through. We could easily do, 8 days of just breath meditation. But this is, the whole point of this basically has been preliminary to get to where we're going beginning tomorrow. And tomorrow we really get to you could say, the beginning of Dujam Lingpa's approach to Shamata. So just hang in there and do the best that you can. And be content with that for now. But be curious, and always, I think it's very helpful to make a note of your questions also for yourself. So even if they're not answered in this retreat, let these questions power your investigation of the path and lead you into more and more teachings to find answers for your questions. It is a great mass of merit that you have created today with your powerful motivation, with your dedicated practice. May this virtue ripen not as some temporary pleasure for you, but may this ripen as the highest good for all sentient beings. May all sentient beings find a path, find authentic teachers to lead them on the path. And may all beings achieve liberation at the end of the path, so that suffering is eliminated from this world forever. All by the goodness of what you have done today. May it be so.